This meeting is being
sometime during the
recorded.
month of May. However, this year it's been a little bit earlier, and we did get reports of emergence in a couple of locations in New York City here last week. And we were able to go out to those locations and actually confirm that the early instar juvenile spotted lanternfly had emerged in those areas. We may find that we have a little bit of an early hatch in other parts of the state as well. I will say, obviously, New York City is a little bit warmer. You also have sort of the urban heat sink effect, which again probably influenced that earlier emergence as well. We also have got a couple different models out there that we use for trying to predict when spotted lanternfly is going to emerge. And so, depending upon where you are in the state, that could be anywhere over the next couple of weeks into mid to late May. And again, very much dependent upon what the weather does. But also, I always point out to people that New York State is a very large state with a very diverse landscape and a lot of microclimates. And so, it's very hard to predict emergence um, in any one particular area at any given time. So keep that in mind as well. But we may see this trend of early emergence as well in the Hudson Valley as well as Long Island. So we wanted to be sure that people were aware that they may start to see these things a little bit earlier. The other thing that's really important is the early instar is very, very small, and a lot of people will overlook it and not notice it. But again, if you go onto our website, we do have some good outreach materials, as do our friends at Cornell Cooperative Extension and the New York State IPM program, so you can get a good visual of what it is that we're looking for. So a little bit about what folks can do about spotted lanternfly. Again, so through the winter months, we had encouraged folks to go out and do what's called egg mass scraping. And in fact, our staff, as well as staff from other agencies, including USDA, did quite a bit of egg mass scraping through the winter months. By doing that, you're influencing or reducing the population and the number of nymphs that will emerge in the spring. At this point, we're probably just about past egg scraping, and again, very much dependent upon the climate in your particular area. But we are asking, as I said before, for residents to be on the lookout for the first instar. It is a fairly small insect with black body with white spots. Does not have the very showy wings of the adult spotted lanternfly. And if you do see spotted lanternfly, nymphs here early on, and in particular, if you're out on the east end of Long Island or in some of the areas upstate where we haven't confirmed the presence of spotted lanternfly, by all means, please report that via our online reporting tool. You can put GPS coordinates in there. You can put a picture in there. Um, and we'd rather have reports. And in fact, even if you're not sure of what it is, report it and put a picture on there, and we can certainly look at those and add that data into our system. A little bit of information just for our ag businesses and really for all of our businesses. So in particular, our vineyards, especially on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley, they need to be looking very carefully and should be starting to monitor for spotted lanternfly. Um, Really, any of the grape producing areas should be looking for it, but in particular, those two areas of Long Island and the Hudson Valley, where we do have confirmations of spotted lanternfly, those are going to be really important, as well as the other parts of the state where grapes are very, very important. Also, I wanted to mention that we do have our survey and treatment crews out and about, and they'll continue to be out all through the year. We surveyed all through the fall and the winter months, trying to delimit areas where spotted lanternfly had been reported. And again, these folks have a really hard, demanding job being out in the environment in all types of weather conditions and all types of landscapes. So, try to be supportive of those folks and also be helpful and courteous to them if they're asking for access to property for survey. Um, if you have questions about survey crews and you want to be sure that folks, you know, are actually working for us, you can ask for IDs. They all have IDs, as well as uniforms, so that you can recognize folks. So a couple things as far as what we're doing about spotted lanternfly this year. It is a continuation of our actions over the last couple of years. We continue to work very, very closely with all of our partner agencies that I mentioned before, DEC, Parks, DOT, Thruway, as well as USDA. USDA has a real focus on our ports, and so those are the places where agricultural products are being shipped out of. Also, our partners at Customs and Border Protection are stationed in those ports of entry, as well as those places where exports are taking place. And we want to try to keep spotted lanternfly away from those locations because they are high risk for spreading spotted lanternfly to other places. Also, we continue to conduct surveys in high risk areas across the state. And just for definition's sake, high risk areas, really what we're seeing is that spotted lanternfly tends to follow our transportation routes and, is moving in commerce, as well as, through recreational and other types of travel. We continue to inspect and certify nursery stock for shipments going out, as well as shipments coming in from other places where we know we have spotted lanternfly. We look at stone shipments as well as other commercial shipments, and in particular work with our partner states who also have spotted lanternfly in their states to be sure that we have best management practices in place to minimize the spread of spotted lanternfly. Also, working with various businesses to try to minimize the risk of accidental movement, and really that leads us into outreach and education. And really, a lot of this is making people aware of the risk and aware of the relatively easy things that they can do to be sure that spotted lanternfly doesn't move. So at this time of year, in particular, in places further upstate, in the cooler areas where it hasn't emerged, if you are traveling or if you are going to a camp, or you're moving and you have material that was stored outside that maybe has egg masses laid on them, you should be inspecting that stuff. And if you find egg masses, scrape those off before you transport that material. Later on in the year, you should be looking at vehicles and being sure that spotted lanternfly aren't in the wheel wells or what have you, and hitchhiking and traveling that way. Also, we continue with a lot of different mechanical control measures. I've talked a little bit about egg scraping, but we also have been using vacuums out in the environment to vacuum up the juvenile spotted lanternfly as well as the adults. And we actually do see a little bit of a difference in population and a reduction in population in those areas where we've used those mechanical means. So finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the national effort for slow the spread of spotted lanternfly. We've been part of a group that was put together by USDA APHIS, the National Plant Board, which is basically all of the plant industry, plant regulatory officials in each of the states, as well as the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, to put together a 5-year strategic plan on spotted lanternfly. We've had a diverse group of states involved in this. We've had California, Washington, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Illinois, as well as New York involved in that effort. That strategic plan is going to be released shortly, and certainly we can make you aware when that does come out. And really important just to note, the participation from California and Washington. They don't have spotted lanternfly yet in the western states. As I mentioned before, the furthest west that it is Illinois and Michigan, but they certainly don't want it in California. And again, California is #1 in grape production, and their industry is very, very concerned about the potential presence of spotted lanternfly. So finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about research. So one of the things that was highlighted in the strategic plan that's going to be coming out is, the importance of the research community and looking at what's going on with spotted lanternfly and providing us with long-term solutions. It's a really active research community. I had an opportunity to meet with some of those folks last week up in Geneva, New York, at the New York State Agritech Agricultural Experiment Station. We had folks from a number of states as well as from USDA around the table trying to talking about what the research priorities are as we try to continue to work with spotted lanternfly. So with that, I will stop there, Yola, and if you want to do the questions, that's great.
Got it. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that. Just for everyone's awareness, I did share the link to our website and our resources on spotted lanternfly in the chat box, so you'll have that there. And we're also recording this. I didn't mention that at the top, but we are recording it, so if anybody needs it after this call is over, you can certainly reach out to us or check our YouTube page. It should be posted there shortly after this call ends. So as Chris mentioned, we're going to take it over to members of the media now for any questions. We do have a much larger group than we actually anticipated right off the bat, so we're going to give it a shot. If you're a member of the media and have a question right now, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can chat the question and I'll read it out to Chris as well. So if there's any questions, now would be the time.
Hi, Alex Crichton at WXXI in Rochester. Just wondering, what's the situation in the Finger Lakes region? Any spottings here?
So yeah, thanks for the question. So we do have a site in Ithaca actually that we had had a report of spotted lanternfly actually from a Cornell student. And we were able to delimit that location. And this is a relatively old report, and forgive me, I'm not going to come up with the exact year on it. I think it was 2020 or 2021 on that one. That was some vacant property actually when we delimited that, and we actually were able to go in there and remove some scrubby trees and chip them that had egg masses on them. We've been in there, repeatedly scouting that area. We've found a couple of adults along the way. We've actually had contractors go in and treat that particular area as well because of the proximity to the wine growing region, as well as the proximity to to Cornell and Ithaca College, and we know that there's a lot of traffic in and out of there. Early on, probably 2016 or 17, I want to say, we did have a report in Penn Yan as well, and we surveyed that area very, very heavily, and we've continued to go back there and have never found anything in that particular location.
But it's probably just a matter of time before it gets here, right?
Well, it is a very good hitchhiker, and I do think that we can anticipate we will find it in additional areas. I think that's a very realistic view, and it's also why, my final point in my discussion was about research and finding long-term management measures for this.
I'm speaking to you from
I have
Buffalo,
a
New York.
question. I'm Anne Marie Barron from the Staten Island Advance. The vacuum method that you mentioned, have you been using that method in New York City, specifically Staten Island, and will you be continuing to use that method going forward?
So I don't know specifically if we have used that in Staten Island at this point. I can get back with you on that.
Okay.
Can you take a question?
And also, would you recommend that residents use any kind of vacuum method to handle the situation on their property?
So that's a great question. So yes, we do know that you know, vacuuming them up is certainly a good practice. What we do when we vacuum them up, we then empty them into a plastic bag and basically put them in the sun, and that will kill them.
Really?
And certainly that is something that that homeowners can do. And we know that we've had some folks, I believe we had a video that was shared with us from a community garden somewhere in New York City where they were using that methodology.
So a shop vac, probably anything they would use outside, I guess would work,
Yeah,
right?
a shop vac or a cordless shop vac. What we have used is a backpack cordless vacuum that runs on a battery. That is because often we're in places where we can't plug in, obviously. So that has worked really well for us. And I will just say that that was a solution that came forward from one of our survey staff who brought that forward, and it actually has worked pretty well. And we know that there are several other states that are also using that. And we also know that there are some pest control companies who are using that method as well.
And you say you don't need to put any kind of, you don't have to put them in a liquid or anything. If you just put them in the plastic bag and leave them in the sun, they'll die?
Seal them up in a plastic bag and put them in the sun, and that will take care of them. They need to be feeding, and so within a few hours they'll be done for in there.
Can you
Thank
tell
you.
us? Yeah, Dave McKinley from Channel 2 News in Buffalo. We're in the far western part of the state, of course. Can you tell us if you found them here or not? That's the first part of the question, if I could.
Sure. So yes, so there is a location in Buffalo that we found through a homeowner report, actually end of last season. We have been in that location, you know, over since it was reported, and we've surveyed that, so we have a good sense of the size of that particular area.
All right. And secondly, what kind of sprayable pesticides can we use if we don't have the vacuum handy and we want to use a commercial or an available pesticide? What's best?
Yeah, so we don't make pesticide recommendations here at Ag and Markets. So what I'd refer you to is to go to the local Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they can make a pesticide recommendation for you. There's been a lot of research into that, and there is a list available.
Anyone have any other questions? And again, you can also chat us. I see that my colleague Hannah also put in some additional resources in the chat box. Right, from Sarah. She's asking from the Post-Journal, so Chris, just so you're aware, this is out in Syracuse, any locations that have been found closer to the Jamestown area in Western New York? Excuse me, not Post-Journal out in Western New York. I apologize. I was reading that as Post-Standard.
I do not believe so.
And one more question, again from Staten Island. How does the population in Staten Island compare to the populations you're finding in other areas of the state and other areas in New York City?
Oh, good question. So I think the numbers in Staten Island are probably a little bit higher, as well as, in New York City, I think the numbers are higher, and that simply is that's a function of time, frankly. And so, as time goes on, population is going to get larger. And so, that was our first location. Um, you know, and also I will say, in proximity to infested areas of New Jersey as well.
Yeah. So it's going to grow, obviously, across the state, the population. We should be particularly concerned because we already have such a high population, right?
You should be concerned. I think the place that I will say is promising is on the research side of things. There are a lot of universities and a lot of scientists at USDA who are looking at this and trying to understand exactly what's going on with spotted lanternfly, understand the life cycle better, and from that, potentially come, measures that will reduce the population going into the future. But again, that's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Chris, I have a couple questions that came in over the chat box. So the first question is, have any spotted lanternfly been found in the Syracuse area? If so, has there been any growth in the population in the last 2 years? And that one is from the standard. Thank you.
Yep. So there is a location in Syracuse that, again, that was a location that we detected last summer, late in the summer, if I remember correctly. We've delimited that one. It appears to be relatively small at this point in time.
And then we also have a question from, it looks like WRFA. It says, do you anticipate adding public campaigns like in Pennsylvania that include posters encouraging people to kill, stomp spotted lanternfly?
Yeah, we actually have had a great partnership with Pennsylvania, and they have shared a lot of that material with us. We've had that message out there, and we'll continue to have that message out there.
I have a question. Are you working with local politicians in any way for them to spread the news or education, schools, anything like that?
So yeah, we have some really good partnerships, as I've mentioned a couple times through the call. So when we have a detection in a new county, we are working with the New York State IPM program, as well as the Cornell Cooperative Extension in the county, to make them aware that we found spotted lanternfly in the county. We make all of the outreach and education materials available to folks at that time. And in fact, those are available to anybody at this point, whether you have spotted lanternfly in the county or municipality or not. That outreach message, we're trying to sort of amplify that through the extension system, as well as integrated pest management program. We have to be focused on the survey and the management side of things here. But certainly those are really important connections to make in the community.
And thanks to Cornell, the extension did share a resource in the chat box for the IPM website as well. So that it looks like that would be helpful for some folks that ask some questions, particularly about pesticide use and what could be acceptable. We have another question. It says, in New York City specifically, any way to know if the spotted lanternfly population to be greater or less than last year, given the measures taken to vacuum eggs, the stomping campaign, et cetera?
So, one of the real challenges with any of these types of things, whether it's spotted lanternfly or another invasive species, is to have a sense of true population numbers. And again, the numbers are can be large and really kind of anecdotal to really make a prediction on whether populations will be greater or smaller over time. We do know what the reproductive rate is. We do know that if we scrape egg masses, vacuum adults, we do reduce the population. Whether that, in a year to year, whether you see that as a member of the general public out there, that's hard to say. And then the other thing that we don't necessarily understand completely with spotted lanternfly is what are the things that are that could lead to mortality of spotted lanternfly that are out there naturally in the environment. So there's research projects going on with a couple of naturally occurring bacteria as well as fungi that have been isolated in areas of Pennsylvania, New Jersey where the populations are high. And so sometimes they will see some of those pathogens, if you will, that are causing mortality on spotted lanternfly. You also we have a lot of observations that have come in about spotted lanternfly that have been parasitized by some other type of insect. And again, those are things that we, have the research community looking into, because those are potentially things that if we are able to augment them, they probably won't eliminate spotted lanternfly, but in the future, those types of things might reduce the population a bit and, lead to a better level of management.
We have another question. It's from Emily Russell, and I believe she's from NPR up in the North Country. And it says, looking at the county maps, it looks like spotted lanternfly hasn't been reported in the North Country. Is that right? And how would you characterize how much threat the SLF poses to New York compared to other invasives? So two-part question.
Okay, so couple good question there. So we have not had any reports of spotted lanternfly up in the North Country. One of the research questions that is out there to be answered or confirmed is that we do have some modeling data that indicates that maybe there are certain parts of New York State where the winter is going to be a little bit too severe, or the growing season a little bit short for spotted lanternfly to get to the point where they're laying eggs. And so in some of those places that are particularly colder or shorter season, you might see an introduction of spotted lanternfly, but not see establishment. And the reality is we won't probably know whether those models are correct until we start to see an introduction in some of those parts of New York. The second part of the question, can you repeat that for me, Yola?
Absolutely. It was, how would you characterize how much of a threat SLF poses to New York compared to other invasives? Oh,
okay, great. So from the standpoint of risk, we're very concerned, as I've said a couple times, about the grape industry. I think one of the real challenges with spotted lanternfly is that it is, when it's present in large numbers and you have the honeydew issue with the sooty mold, that makes it very, very visible to the public. It does not pose any sort of a health risk. It doesn't sting. It doesn't bite people or animals. So from that perspective, we don't have as deep a concern. I guess what I would say is there are perhaps other invasive species that we would be potentially more concerned about if we were to see them here in New York State. But nonetheless, spotted lanternfly definitely can have an impact on grapes, as I've said, and can have an impact on quality of life and recreation. Also, in particular, for somebody like yourself in the North Country, You rely a lot on tourism. And I think, potentially spotted lanternfly can have an impact, there as well. That's, in addition to the concerns on, damage to grapes, there's also the tourism aspect of the vineyard and the grape industry that is a concern as well.
Does anyone have any other questions? Again, you can chat us, or you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question. We'll give it a few more minutes to see if anything else pops up. Okay. Well, I think that probably wraps it up. I'm not really seeing anything else pop in and not hearing anyone else have any other questions, but I do want to just go ahead and remind folks that, again, we are recording this. So if you are interested in hearing this again, or, having this for a newscast or whatnot, feel free to reach out to us, or again, check our YouTube page for that, which will be posted shortly. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody again for joining us and helping us spread the message. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody. Have a good afternoon.